Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thank you so much for tuning in here on Friday, December 22nd. Jaguars versus Buccaneers, matchups to watch, Week 16. Big game for both ball clubs. The Jaguars, they are tied for first place. They had a commanding lead in the AFC South. They're now only tied, and it's a three-way tie at the top with the Colts and the Texans. So the Jaguars are now in must-win territory, realistically, for the first time since the 2022 playoffs, right? How do the Jaguars match up with the Bucs in this one? We're going to get into it. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Happy holidays to all of you out there. So, looking at the Jaguars and the matchups to watch, in my opinion, versus the Buccaneers, I'm really interested to see how they match up with these receivers, right? Is Tyson Campbell able to play? Is Andre Cisco able to play in this game? If they are able to play, how effective are they, right? You've seen Tyson Campbell come back from injuries this year and not look quite himself. So you've got Mike Evans, you've got Chris Godwin, two of the best receivers in the game when they're on the money, right? Mike Evans has been the model of consistency, and he's an unbelievable specimen at 6'5", 230 pounds. Chris Godwin, a really good physical slot receiver. You've got Trey Palmer, who brings speed to the table as well. What does Mike Caldwell, the Jaguars defensive coordinator, do on the back end in this game? Against less mobile quarterbacks recently, like Joe Flacco, like Jake Browning, he's played a little bit more man coverage than normal. Now, of course, it will still be a zone-heavy defense regardless, but when they have run more man-to-man, they have gotten into more trouble, quite frankly. They do not perform at a high level when running man-to-man coverage. I hope they don't do that in this one. The reason that you run less man against mobile quarterbacks is because if you're in man coverage chasing guys all over the field, it usually will give a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, somebody else that's really athletic, some running room, some rushing lanes, right? But I think that the Jaguars need to play more of their typical defense that they play against quarterbacks they respect. You're going to have blitzes, but they need to be well-timed. You're going to also have simulated pressures, a bunch of guys creeping up at the line of scrimmage. You're going to show pressure and drop out sometimes. But I think you've got to show Baker Mayfield respect. I think you've got to show this offense respect. I think also, just like on offense, when you have pre-snap movement, you need to have post-snap movement on the defensive side of the ball for this group. Make it confusing for Baker Mayfield. Don't just let him sit there and read your defense. Make the picture muddled, right? I don't want to see pure man coverage looks. I don't want to see static looks from the Jaguars defense. Can Mike Caldwell get the job done in that regard? And again, who makes plays on the ball when you're throwing it up to Mike Evans? I mean, my word, you would think based on what you've seen this year, it's Darius Williams. But Darius Williams is a shorter cornerback. Mike Evans is one of the biggest receivers we've ever seen. How does that matchup work? I think that's going to be fascinating to see if they get lined up against each other and Baker Mayfield takes some shots down the field. Mike Evans, again, 6'5" and 230 pounds. He has gotten 1,000 yards every season in his career. He is one of the best receivers in the NFL, one of the more underrated guys, I think, being in Tampa his whole career, but a guy that the Jaguars absolutely have to worry about. And Chris Godwin, same thing. Another really good football player. The Jaguars, again, in zone coverage, they should have some answers there with Trey Herndon healthy, with some of the guys that they have on the back end, but we'll see how it plays out. And I also want to see the Jaguars pass rushers, right? Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, they're going to be going up a lot against Luke Goedeke at right tackle for Trayvon Walker and Tristan Wirfs at left tackle for Josh Allen. Wirfs has surrendered 5 sacks this year on the left side. He had played right tackle earlier in his career, switched over to left tackle this year, has still been very, very good, but not quite as efficient in pass protection. Can Josh Allen, who is having a magnificent year, get some sacks, get some pressure? He'll likely get pressure. He's gotten pressure in every game this year, but can he get Baker Mayfield onto the ground? That's going to be key. And if he is able to get Baker Mayfield on the ground, he can either tie or break the Jaguars' single-season sack record held by Calais Campbell. He needs a sack and a half to get the job done to break that record. 1 sack will tie it. But Trayvon Walker, he's got to play how he's been playing as of late as well. Luke Goedeke, this is a right tackle who I think that overall they're pretty happy with him, but he's given up a bunch of pressures. He's also given up 5 sacks like Tristan Wirfs. They've got to go eat. They've got to get the job done. The Jaguars defense usually goes as those two go. They are the only real pass rush threats for the Jaguars, especially Josh Allen. He's been the only consistent one on the year. So I think that those guys got to be able to go have pretty good games against two talented tackles. Jaguars interior offensive line switching sides of the ball. Luke Fortner, he's going to be going up against Vita Vea. Vita Vea is 347 pounds. He is athletic at 347 pounds. I think he is going to eat the Jaguars Sports Center for breakfast. Not going to be a good Christmas season for Luke Fortner, I don't think, unfortunately. This is a guy that has been struggling mentally, has been struggling physically down the stretch. I think that overall, for the most part, during his second year here, he's done a decent job in pass protection, but Vita Vea is the type of guy who will absolutely destroy him in the running game and probably be able to get some interior pressure against Luke Fortner. I think the Jaguars, they made their investment in Luke Fortner last year, third round pick. They want him to be the starting center. I don't think it's working out long term, unfortunately, there. So I think Vita Vea, that's going to certainly be a matchup to watch versus Luke Fortner. And it's a really interesting coaching matchup with both sides of the defenses just knowing exactly what they like to do. Todd Bowles, Mike Caldwell. Mike Caldwell came from the Todd Bowles coaching tree, worked under Todd Bowles for a really long time. So you're going to get a bunch of guys at the line of scrimmage. You're going to get pressure. You're going to see sometimes the guys drop out and there's just simulated pressure or no pressure at all. It's going to be fascinating to see how both offenses handle these defenses that should look very familiar to what they see regularly in practice. I think that's going to be really interesting. And Press Taylor versus Todd Bowles, I think, for me, it's as much about Press Taylor and Doug Peterson versus themselves as it is against this defensive coordinator, head coach. The wide receiver screens, they don't work. The inside runs, they don't work. You've got to stop calling these plays so consistently, especially on first down. The inside runs are just killing drives to start the drive, and the wide receiver screen, same thing. You need to get into 12 and 13 personnel if you've got Britton Strange available, and he should be available. You need to work the misdirections. You need to work the outside zone, the toss crack. You need to have pre-snap motion on runs and passes. Identify what the defense is doing and give them a little bit of a hesitation to start the play. And you might be able to take advantage even if CJ Beathard is out there, which looks likely at this point. And that comes to the next question. Will Trevor Lawrence play? It's trending in the wrong direction with the concussion protocol. He has not practiced yet this week. If he can get out there today limited, he'll have a chance. But again, it's not looking good. It is feeling like CJ Beathard is probably going to be the starting quarterback. So, you've seen the Jaguars play some backup quarterbacks this year and not really show them the respect, run more man coverage, blitz even more than they normally do. What do the Bucs do on the other side of the ball? Are they going to, coach this one up similarly to how Mike Caldwell coached up the Jaguars defense against the Browns and Joe Flacco, against the Bengals and Jake Browning? If they do, I think CJ Beathard could have himself a day. We'll see, though. Finally, though, the Jaguars, offensively, they cannot beat themselves. Defensively, obviously, they can't beat themselves either. You cannot have the coverage bust that you had, over those 2 weeks against the Browns and the Bengals. They cleaned it up more last week, in my opinion. But look, the Jaguars offense, the pre-snap penalties, killing them lately. The 3 different receivers dropping passes last week, killing them lately. The Jaguars on the year have lost the second most EPA on dropped passes in the NFL, only behind the Kansas City Chiefs. And then you also look at the wide receiver screens. They are one of the very worst teams at wide receiver screens, yet they run them the most. Part of the reason they're doing that is because they can't get much going in the running game. But I'm telling you, if you want to run screens, it's got to be running backs. It's got to be tight ends. The wide receivers, they do not have the ability to block at a high level. Nose Jones. And they also just don't have the tackle breaking ability, the shiftiness. Unless you're talking about potentially Jamal Agnew, maybe Parker Washington. But those guys didn't get the job done in that regard last week either. I think you have got to try to abandon the wide receiver screens as much as possible and abandon the inside runs as much as possible. And obviously, you got to catch the football. Parker Washington cannot drop the football. Easy catch last week that he dropped that kind of stalled a drive out. Elijah Cooks, same thing. Easy catch in the red zone. Couldn't hang on to it. Travis Etienne had 2 drops last week. So this is a group on offense that has to stop shooting themselves in the foot. If they're able to do that, I think that the Jaguars defense can carry them to a victory this week. We'll see how it plays out, but really appreciate y'all tuning in for these matchups to watch. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also check out genjag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear. Really appreciate it. Y'all have a good one.